Good afternoon, everyone. This is Brian Carrier here with SleuthKit Labs. We're here for the 3.12 release webinar, talking about data exfiltration and USB devices and a whole bunch of other things. We'll give it a few more seconds here to allow folks to trickle in. All right, let's get going. Basic goal here today is to kind of map out some of the new features that are in there, talk about some of the background of some of them, why you care about them, why they're interesting. Everyone's muted, but there is a Q&A tab on the, at least on my box, the right-hand side of my GoToWebinar little UI thing. So if you want to plug in questions there, we will get to them. We have some other SKL folks on the line as well who can help answer some questions as well, or at least keep me honest with some of this stuff. So let's get started. So main goal today, provide an overview of the features of 3.12, data exfil, PowerShell, USB, server side, validation, a bunch of other stuff that are kind of more on the smaller side, and then we'll do whatever Q&A we need to. As a reminder, right? If you are a Cyber Triage customer, you get access to the training bundle along with your license. So if you haven't done it already, go to cybertriage.com/training, and you will find a button there, a link there for the bundle. Fill out your name as long as you use your email address associated with your company with the license. You should get validated, and then you can see lots of videos of Mike talking about how to use Cyber Triage and some other content on there. EDR integrations. I had the slide up from the 3.11 one, just kind of reminding everyone for this. So we've been working for the past few months here with our customers on getting Cyber Triage integrated in with their EDRs. So we have scripts to help out with SentinelOne and documentation for SentinelOne, Defender, CrowdStrike. If you've been trying that and you love it, great. Let us know. If you had any kind of confusion or whatever, also let us know. We want to help you with that integration process. Just to refresh your memory, this integration is about using the EDR to collect data with Cyber Triage. Right? Cyber Triage is an agentless solution. We're not an agent, but you know what? If you have an EDR agent, that's fantastic. You can use that to run Cyber Triage, get those artifacts, and help with that analysis. As a little side note, we're working right now on ingesting data from EDRs, and so we should have some more interesting data on that in the future. That's kind of one of our themes right now. So as a quick reminder, right, we do have online user guides at docs.cybertriage.com. If you go to the bottom of the left-hand menu, there's a history. It's number 19, as you can see here on this listing here. That gives you the entire change log of all the releases. So we're going to talk about a handful of things here today. You can go to that and see the whole list of 3 or 4 dozen things that are in there. All right, data exfiltration, theme number 1. So data exfiltration, right? So attackers will often copy data from a host to their infrastructure, right? To have that data either because that's their main target, kind of the theft and the IP is valuable, or for some kind of extortion mechanism here, right? So there's 2 concepts involved with any data exfiltration. One is the tool used to kind of get data from that host onto that other infrastructure. And the second is that infrastructure, right? That domain, that server, that IP address, or whatever that's used to store the exfiltrated data. So those are the kind of themes, right? So now with Cyber Triage, there's in 3.12, there's now a bunch of logic in place to detect tools and domains that could be used for exfiltration. One challenge is we'll see through some of these things, right? They may be used for legit purposes. So you may have to get involved here to also kind of identify, which ones are good or bad in that environment. So for example, tools, a bunch of tools will now get flagged. Arclone, FileZilla, Megasync, etc. These are tools that you can use to synchronize or copy data from your computer to some other server or cloud storage provider, right? So we're going to look for executable files, and log files. And if we find either of those, that will get flagged. So you can see here, this is a data set from one of Mike's training things here. There's a bunch of rclone usage here. So you can see here that the folder, the rclone folder got flagged, the rclone executable got flagged, in our process information, which is basically, we know that a process was running or did run. We can see some rclone being run with various arguments. Those got flagged. So a variety of different kinds of artifacts that are referring to rclone or other tools will get flagged as part of that, so that you're aware that there was an execution, and then you can then use that timestamps and location and what's normal in that environment to figure out, kind of how relevant it is or not. Similarly, domains, right? Data's got to go somewhere to get back to the attacker, and various kinds of infrastructure is used for that. Usage of those domains is now going to be flagged. We're using the really good work of lotsproject.com. They maintain a bunch of sites that can be used for living off the land kind of thing, or living off these various websites, kinds of things. So here's some examples, like Mega NZ, which we've always flagged. That's always kind of had nefarious reasons, so we've always flagged that one regardless. But there's a bunch of other ones now that will now flag, like Google, right? Because Google can be used to exfil data, right? You can use Google Drive, Google Storage, etc., for these things. So we're now going to be flagging use of some of these storage sites because that could have been used by an attacker to get data off of that system. But of course, it could be normal. Like if you're a Gmail, Google Shop, right? There could be a lot of drive.google.com URLs and domains that are on there. As always, right? If you good listing is a way for you to kind of help cyber triage learn, figure out kind of what's normal or not in your environment. So if Google is normal in your environment, you can right click on it and say add to good list, and then you have the choice, right, of adding it to the incident or global level. So incident level means for that investigation, that will not get marked as bad or suspicious. Global level means forever, it won't get that marked as bad or suspicious. So if you're a consultant or an MSSP or something like that, you may want to choose the incident level, knowing that this is normal for that one company, that one environment, but you want to see it next time. If you're a corporate SOC person, in your environment, yeah, GitHub's normal, all right, this is good, or whatever. You could do a global level if you want to stop seeing it. So your choice. All right, so that's on the data exfil. Plug your questions in. If not, here, let me. Question here on the EDR. Yeah, the question here is kind of ingesting EDR data after the fact, or after investigation. So as part of investigation, leveraging that data as much as the output from our collector and data we bring in. So kind of building on this idea that we're a platform that can bring data in from a variety of sources. All right, USB devices. Kind of similar, kind of different, right? Still on kind of the data exfil theme here, right? So this is kind of a common theme that we've gotten a bunch of requests for in the past, right? Tying to insider threat or HR investigations that are also focused not just on the external storage and cloud-based storage, but also on physical storage and data being copied off computers, right? And wanting to know, were there USB devices that were plugged in here on the system or before a device comes in the environment, of knowing what kinds of devices were plugged into it. So cyber triage will now parse the registry and pull that kind of data out. Historically, we didn't really associate it with intrusions, but we're now including it in this theme. So there's a new section on the left-hand side under system configuration. There's attached devices, and this is where you will see the USB devices that were connected. Some are storage, some aren't storage. Some may be scanners, or some could be mice or keyboards or whatever. But you'll now see, vendor name, product name, the serial number, and dates of connections that are on there. The 313 release is going to use the event log to keep track of, when devices were plugged and removed. So there'll be another incremental change here on 313 for showing more of a history on if there's event logging, auditing enabled for that. But right now for 312, we give you what was plugged in first, last on there. So hopefully that will help you to map out which things are relevant, or not for your investigations. Theme number 3 that we'll talk about today, it's a big kind of theme in 312, is PowerShell detection. So Cyber Triage for quite a while has collected PowerShell logs, and they were parsed and they were put into the event log or the timeline. There's now scoring in there, right? One of our big goals is to score things for you so that you don't miss things that are suspicious. So if there's PowerShell logs and things on there, some of the commands will now get flagged as suspicious that you may want to take a look at. So you can see here the screenshot is PowerShell is used to download data. So there was a PowerShell script or a script block that had a download command. That data was downloaded. We want to make sure you're aware of that, right? To make sure that you're aware that PowerShell is being used to download things. You can click on the event, and at the bottom, there's this little view button down here that allows you to view that script. So in this case, this is actually our PowerShell script for Cyber Triage. It's called the deployer script. It's what we use to download things into EDR, and it downloads the collector as part of that, which is why it's got flagged, because it is doing a download as part of that. So this is now going to be changed in 3.13 to be a bit more formatted, so you can actually more easily read these blocks of script. But this is basically a way of, this came out of the PowerShell operational event log. So it's all kind of a PowerShell block that will be a bit better formatted, but it's basically ways to allow you to see that. So basic takeaway, 312, some of those commands that are now a bit suspicious, starting threads, etc., will get flagged. You can take a look at them and click on some of these things. If a bunch of these things, especially with PowerShell, are always, some environments may do these things normally, right? PowerShell has a very legitimate use. If you are getting a bunch of things that get flagged that you think are more likely to be normal than being suspicious, we love to kind of hear what you guys are seeing as part of stuff that helps us to make the scoring better with that. So if you do come across things or find things that we're flagging that you would rather we don't flag, send us a message, send us some feedback in the app, or whatever that can help us to kind of tune some of these things that we flag. We don't want to make extra noise for you, but we also want to make sure you're aware of things that could be bad in that environment. All right, let me double check Q&A here. All right, plug your questions in here. All right, theme number 4, I guess we're on here. Server-side processing. So this is relevant for our team customers, right? So quick reminder, Cyber Triage is deployed in 2 ways, either standard, running on your desktop, laptop computer, or team, which is a client-server architecture. So historically, a bunch of, so analysis pipelines, right, where artifacts go down pipelines and get scored as being good or bad or suspicious. Those are always run on the Cyber Triage server, right? That though requires that first the artifacts be extracted from like a disk image or a logical file set or your CAPE import or something else. They have to get extracted from that data source before they can go down the pipelines. So historically, the team clients, right? So the client that was running on your laptop, your desktop, would do a bunch of that work. And the main reason was, especially for like a disk image, that can be quite big, right? And so it's easier to just kind of run that processing on the client that just uploads the artifacts that are interesting, and then goes down the pipelines. That disk image can then stay on your system. We had a bunch of customers who have a different environment, right, where the server already had access to those disk images or JSON files or other kind of data sources, and really wanted the server to be doing all the work and not have the clients do anything. So that's not the case. So now when you add certain kinds of data sources in as the client, you can pick or identify if the server has access to that file, and if it does, then you could turn that client off and it'll be fine, right? As long as the server can access that while it's running, you're all good. That's the main advantage here, is that you don't have to keep the client around. Historically, if the client was going to process six disk images, it had to stay around while all 6 kind of got pre-processed and sent up to the server. So now you can just kind of have all 6 on the server, just tell them that they're there, and it will go off and do the processing. This last bullet's kind of important here. The client is not uploading the images. This is not saying, hey, I have the client here on my laptop, upload this 1 terabyte image to the server and start processing. This all right now assumes that the server already has access to that 1 terabyte image, either local storage or shared storage. We don't really care, but there's no upload in that kind of process. It is pretty transparent. Right now, if you now have a client version and you add a disk image, you will get an option here to process the file on the workstation or the server. So server is if you want to do it there and disconnect. Workstation is if you have the disk image on your system and you want to process it. So otherwise, everything after that is the exact same experience. Validation, another topic here to discuss of what's new. So we at Cyber Triage have really tried to kind of make your life easier, right? And one of the ways that we try and make your life easier is that we decided very intentionally from early on to not have a tree structure on the left-hand side or whatever that had things like prefetch and movie cache and shim cache and am cache and all these kinds of things over there. Because I personally forget which ones are which at some point, and it's too hard to keep track of. And the goal here was to keep things at a higher level, right? Processes, triggered tasks, kind of a core number of a dozen or less concepts, and not make everyone have to memorize 100 different kind of artifact types. So that's how we set out to do things, right? Unfortunately, right, totally understandable, right? Investigators want to do validation, right, on Cyber Triage and compare what we're seeing with other tools. And the way that we decided to display data made that hard, because people want to validate, like, I'm seeing 360 items on prefetch with this tool. I want to verify Cyber Triage is also getting 360 items prefetch. And they couldn't. We really allowed no way to do that before, because we merged prefetch under the process heading, because prefetch indicates a process ran just under process, along with other artifacts that also indicate a process ran. So it wasn't really easy for people to say, hey, I just want to see the processes that came only from prefetch or came from prefetch and show them there. So our goal is still that we want you to think about processes and not about prefetch, but we want to make you happy as well. So we want you to be able to validate things and have kind of a way of seeing what just came out of prefetch, or what just came out of shim cache, or what just came out of scheduled tasks, or what just came out of bits jobs, or whatever. So there's a new view in the lower left-hand corner called artifact sources. It's down the very bottom. You can click on that, and that will give you all of the artifacts by what we call the data artifact type. Data artifact is the name that we're using now. There's a blog post I have coming out kind of soon on data artifact is what we're calling the artifact types like prefetch or BAM or shim cache, right, that are created from parsing data. Information artifacts is the term that we're using for our grouping. Processes, triggered tasks, inbound logons, all that kind of higher level concepts. We're calling those information artifacts, the lower level ones data artifacts. So this new artifact sources view allows you to see all of the data artifacts that we parsed. So you can see app compat cache there, or BAM, or the various auto runs kinds of things. You can click on that and then see all of the items in here. So this is an example of, we clicked on prefetch. You see here the prefetch. These are a bunch of items, either Cyber Triage executions that came out of prefetch. You can see here those resulted in processes, and these were the timestamps that we got out of the prefetch file for those. So this is a new way now for you to say, hey, I want to compare prefetch, and that's the one that always came up, to be honest. Prefetch with Cyber Triage with prefetch from tool X, and see that they're the same, hopefully, as part of that. Hopefully we have more, who knows? That's the idea, right? Our intention isn't that you use this as your primary way of doing investigations. If you really want to, you can. But again, our assumption is that it's better for you just to go to process and get all of that merged data and not have to worry about, which artifact source it came from. As always, though, and I think, do I have a slide in this? No, I meant to put a slide in this. To refresh your memory here, right? When you click on a process item in the process view, in the lower right-hand corner, there's a sources tab. And I really should put a screenshot in here. But there's a sources tab there, and that will always show you where it came from. So if you're ever curious about why Cyber Triage knows about a process or an inbound logon or something else, that sources tab in the lower right-hand corner will say it came from prefetch, it came from movie cache, it came from security log, event ID, whatever. And so you have that information there. Once you find it, if we don't want to hide the fact of where it came from, but it's just not our primary way of how we want you to focus on things. So that's the interface. Try it out. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. But that's kind of our new way of kind of helping to support that validation of use case. Cool. All right, got some before. This is now a laundry list of other kind of small things here. I did get a bunch of questions on here. Is there a way to export CT results and share them with another analyst? Yes. This is where I really should have a VM on backup here right for right now. So yes. So in the reports view, there's a in the open up a host in the report view, you can pull down and choose to export all files or export all things. And there's a variety of ways in there that you can get them to kind of share with other people. That data is not necessarily unique to opening back up in Cyber Triage, but that is one way of doing that. The question there of kind of importing in other CT instances, we do not. We do not have kind of a way of exporting data from Cyber Triage to re-import back another, mainly because our assumption is that you have a team instance in that scenario. And so you and your colleagues are all working in the same one. If you do, the scenario that some of our customers use with that though is that they collect with the collector, they get that JSON file, and they end up kind of reprocessing it afterwards, with that same item. So cool. Yeah, and I think the HTML report has been, how people often share that. If they're just looking at kind of sharing results for someone else to look at, the HTML report kind of serves that purpose. Another question here on the sources view. So this is another way that you can kind of see what the artifacts are that Cyber Triage is collecting. So there's also a collection on the collection details panel of Cyber Triage. There's a way there for you to see what files were collected. This is kind of similar to that, except for that one before would just mention like, oh, we grabbed the software hive or the system hive. This is now like one level below that, where it'll say like, oh, these are the run once key, the run key, et cetera, kind of more fine grained in terms of what came out of those locations. All right, other things that are interesting. So 312 added a global search feature. So this allows you to search all of your past cases for IOCs. So main opening welcome screen panel, there's a search all hosts button on the lower right-hand corner. And that brings up this where you can plug in hash values, IP addresses, device IDs, etc. Basic use case here being that you get some indicator, some hash value, some whatever you want to see if you've seen it in the past. So kind of big picture overview here. When you add data in the Cyber Triage, it goes into two places. One is that every incident has its own database. And so that's kind of a self-contained database for all the hosts that get added in there. That's got the most detailed data. There's also what I call the correlation database. It's called the analytics database behind the scenes. It's the same idea as the correlation database in autopsy. That's why I use that term. But it's basically storing all of the hash values and signatures of items so that you can know, oh, I saw this file 2 weeks ago, or I saw this process 3 weeks ago on some other host. So this is searching that. This is searching that correlation analytics database. If you deleted the incident and that database is gone, but you kept it in the analytics database, it'll still show up here as part of that search. So the context of this request has come up when people get some new threat intel, some new whatever, and they want to say if they've seen it before in their investigations, they can now plug this in and do that search and see if they've seen it before. So showing original path. This is kind of tied to the USB devices use case scenario here, right? So cyber triage has always historically normalized paths because different artifacts are really inconsistent with what they store for paths. Some are absolute, some are relative, some have environment variables in them, some have GUIDs in them. It's really inconsistent. So we want to basically make a state, some have drive letters, some don't. Some have device paths, some don't. So our goal was basically make a normalized path that we can map all these things to, and then make it easier to correlate with and kind of map that, like, oh, this process is that file also used for this startup item, and make all these connections. So that's been the goal. Unfortunately, that meant that we would sometimes lose data as part of that. We would drop data on the floor that could be interesting. And primarily the drive letters are the primary thing that would get dropped on the floor that could be interesting for some kind of a scenario, especially as you get more towards kind of the insider threat, HR investigations, and trying to figure out, like, oh, this came off of the F drive or the G drive and not the C drive. So historically, you've always had this on the bottom area, item details. You've had path, which would have like this /images /training, whatever. Now you will also see this original path data down here. So this is now going to say C:, images, training, whatever, the backslashes. So this is now kind of the original kind of raw, non-normalized path. So up top, you'll still see the normalized one. But if you do find something and really want to kind of see, did this come from a USB drive? Did this come from a UNC share? Did this come from the C drive? I don't see it in the C drive. This original path data can give you that kind of context now about what drive letter it came from. And you can also figure out, it was app data or a GUID or whatever, but that's probably less interesting for you to have access to that kind of original data. So that is there now. If you were ever looking for that in the past, it is now down there in item details. Other new things, you can now manually upload files for malware analysis. So as you know, right, for the folks who use cyber triage, right, when you add a data source in, you're prompted about what you want to do for malware scanning. You can query for the hash values to see if they've already been analyzed by the 40+ engines at Reversing Labs. If they have been, you'll get a score back, you get some information back. And then you had a decision to make early on what else you wanted to do if they don't know about it, right? So if it's unknown, you can upload it for file analysis, and so it gets scanned by 40+ engines. Starting in the summer, you can query the IMPASH. We talked about that last release webinar. You can use the IMPASH, which is the import table of the file, to look for similar fuzzy-ish match kind of files to see if any of them are good or bad, or you can just mark it as suspicious. So what you can do now in 3.12 is that if you choose to either just mark it as suspicious or do the IMPASH, you now have the option to basically look at it, make a decision. If your location does not want to automatically always upload files that are unknown, and you want to kind of do a manual scrub of them, you now can, right? So you can look for that file, say, oh, you know what, it's suspicious. The IMPASH is kind of unclear. I'm not concerned about revealing any IP with this. You can right-click on it. You choose Analyze for Malware. You always had the option to upload a recorded feature sandbox, although it was in this primary menu before. It's now in the sub-menu. Or you can now upload to cybertriage.com, which is the new option, and that will then get you the 40+ malware scanning engines. Once the score comes back, that item will get flagged as up or down based off of what that null result is. So this is been a long-term request as well for the folks who are a little bit more sensitive about uploading off files to there. they want a manual step, this is now that manual step. All right, that was it for the kind of small ones. Let me see other questions that are on here. So there's a question here on Linux, that a lot of the effort here is on Windows, anything towards Linux. Sometimes even UAC collections give issues in CT. We had 312 and 313, I don't think have a whole lot with the Linux parsing. If you have had specific issues, hopefully you've reached out to our support on that, whether it's part of the UAC or not. I know we've been talking about doing some videos on that, since some of our users hadn't used UAC before when we started to use that back in the spring. But I'll follow up with you afterwards, just to kind of make sure that we are tracking whatever you are seeing, with that and other kind of things on there. As hopefully you all know, right? We are a very kind of request-driven place, right? So our roadmap every quarter is based off of kind of who is asking for, or what's being asked for kind of the most, what's the highest demand, and even higher priority for things that have like no workaround for things on there. So if there's things on the Linux integration that we did in the spring that aren't what you're looking for, or that you're looking for more, let's make sure we circle back on that so we can get that on our list of other things. There's a question here about adding additional processing features and CT becoming a heavyweight app. I don't know that we've added a whole lot of things that make us any more heavyweight than before. I mean, certainly maybe search, maybe it's coming up under the search question. It's always like that data is already there. This is kind of making it more available. We are certainly very focused though, or kind of on this goal of we want to continue to be kind of a light triage tool. Just kind of, just talking here, unscripted here. One of our challenges is always that we get requests more and more to become the deeper dive tool as well. And we as well don't want to make people change tools, right? Once they've kind of gone beyond triage, right? But so I think what our goal here is to make sure that we can make our pipelines be prioritized enough that you can get quick results, your initial results quickly, even if we're also providing deeper dive things. This did come up under the context of search. One thing I really don't want Cyber Triage to ever have is a full indexed search like Autopsy does, with Solar or Elastic or whatever, just because that becomes crazy slow. And it's not as necessary for intrusions, right? To be able to look at every single bit and byte, on the system. So, I think we'll always have some kind of search feature, but our goal is to kind of make all these other things kind of make sure they're fast with that. We certainly do not want to give up on that overall goal. This question about Mac. I think we'll do something about Mac is not on the kind of near-term roadmap, just full disclosure. We'll probably get some kind of Mac on there, like in terms of basic malware analysis and things, but kind of a deep in-depth analysis of Mac is not currently on the, I'm just going to say 313, 314, or 315, just in terms of kind of features as they are right now. But again, I'll reach out, right? Or someone wants to reach out, for that, just because it's always good to know kind of what parts of the analysis that people care about, right? And if it's just kind of a malware scan, or if it's really kind of mapping out kind of all the startup items and processes and whatever, for that. Question here on malware analysis results. So reversing labs is a bit different here than like VirusTotal, right? VirusTotal kind of broadcasts to the world when you upload things out there. We have a private reversing labs account. So when files get uploaded, it is not broadcast to the world, right? They're only available to other Cyber Triage users who happen to query for the same hash value because they have it in their data set, and that gets queried for. So this is a far lower risk than uploading to VirusTotal or whatever, and you fearing that people are going to know this file has been found and revealed, right? So it stays within the Cyber Triage private, kind of account, if you will. And the only way to kind of know it's there is if someone were else to also query that. They will just see it is there, but have no clue in terms of where it actually came from as part of that. The recorded future sandbox, though, is different. The recorded future sandbox, those results can get broadcast into the recorded future threat intelligence stream, which is why before you upload data into the recorded future sandbox, you do have to agree that you know those are the deeper terms, the deeper kind of different terms than reverse labs. Question about Autopsy is a deeper dive tool. Yes, Autopsy is our open source, what I would call general purpose forensics tool. So Autopsy is much like a magnet or an encase. You can use it for kind of any kind of investigation, but you just need to know where to look and what makes things relevant or not. And so there is a way to move data from Cyber Triage into Autopsy. There's an export module that allows you to open it back up in Autopsy, and that gives you Solar and carving and all that kind of stuff if you want that. But we're always trying to also bring in medium-sized features into Cyber Triage so that you don't have to keep on toggling between tools, which wastes your time and makes making reports more challenging when you have some things labeled here and some things labeled over there. Did I get all these things? I think I got all the questions here. Good. All right. So other themes that are being worked on right now for 3.13. So memproc-fs is being incorporated for memory forensics. This has been a long-term request by a bunch of people. Cyber Triage right now ships with volatility version 2. That is a great tool, but does not support a lot of the kind of newer versions of Windows. And so memproc-fs is another open source tool that will be integrated as well to give you the option of which one you want to run on memory images as you import them. So you'll have a choice now between memproc-fs and volatility, excuse me, version 2. There's a new feature in the timeline that's going to focus on kind of showing first-time events. Basic idea here is to make it easier to do kind of a triage on what happened in the past couple weeks. What's interesting in the past couple weeks. It allows you to focus on like basically just focusing on the first time the process started, or looking at just the first processes that happened for the first time in the past few weeks versus all processes. Tighter S3 integration. Right now we upload files to S3 from the collector. With this version, there's a bunch of changes, one of which is going to be multiple kinds of user accounts, supporting signed URLs, and also being able to kind of browse S3 buckets when you add data in. So being able to kind of support an S3 file to bring in import versus you having to log into AWS, download the file or whatever, Blaze or whatever you're using for S3, but being able to kind of download those files and automatically from within Cyber Triage. Jump list has been an artifact that we have not had for a variety of reasons. That's being added back in. That's been kind of an oversight over the past couple of years. And then it's on this theme of like importing EDR data, right? So we'll see how far this is in 3.13, but certainly this is a big theme for the quarter. And certainly if it's minimal in 3.13, we'll certainly have much more of that in 3.14. That's what I got. That's what we have so far for the what's in 3.12. Thanks for the questions. If you have other questions, please let us know. If there are some kind of major pain points or kind of other things that you're looking for in Cyber Triage that it wasn't listed, that we've worked on or whatever, feel free to shoot a message just to kind of remind us and kind of get that upvoted again, for 3.14, as well. So with that, let me see, any other kind of questions that came in? I think we're good. I think just kind of Another comment they're reiterating on the value of triage, right? I mean, while everyone's here, I'll give you my kind of overall philosophy on this. That I think that I think any kind of investigation, whether your goal is a deep dive or not, needs to have some kind of triage, right? Just to kind of get some kind of orientation on things. So to me, I think the maintaining long-term the separation of triage tools versus deep dive tools like is not entirely healthy. So to me, I think the goal is like any kind of data set you get, just because data sets are increasing so much and they're getting so big that you always need some kind of triage of any data set just to get some kind of orientation and figure out where to start. So that's kind of the philosophy, right, that we're kind of rolling with here, which is that, yeah, CyberTriage started off as very much of a purely triage tool, and we want to make sure that you can get results as quickly as possible. But I also don't want to, I like to minimize people having to jump tools and change tools, right? And so trying to balance the how do we provide quick results while also kind of providing that deeper dive as well, as I think is important. But want to commit that our goal is to always be providing fast results, because no one wants to wait hours or days until they have any kind of indications for this. All right. Well, with that, thank you very much, and hope you all have a good day. And for those for those who said that they were in the hurricane's path of Florida and would not be attending, but they'll be watching the video, I hope all of you are doing well as this storm goes through. So have a good day, everyone.